Hello, my dear addict friends. My name is Emily Sussman, and welcome back to my virtual universe of true love here. We are continuing on with what I'm calling recovery story time, chapter by chapter, reading my book, The Addict's Guide to Recovery, illustrated by the supremely talented Jessie Larson. And today we are on chapter 8. Sobriety is a process. And I'm going to show you this beautiful illustration Jessie did of beginning the journey of that process. My dear addict friends, when it comes to what it takes to live in recovery, there is no issue more contentious or fraught with anxiety, or, dare I say, gray and murky than that of sobriety. So for those of you just starting out on this road, and even for some who have been walking it for a while, it's essential to talk about what sobriety means, what practicing sobriety entails, how necessary sobriety is, and to what extent. And then there's the big kahuna of sobriety questions about the possibility for eventual reunification with your drug. The least reassuring, but also truest thing I can tell you right off the bat is that sobriety is a relative term, meaning the answers to those questions will vary considerably from person to person. Please hear me when I say that just like recovery itself, sobriety is a process, not an event, for most recovering addicts. It often takes a great deal of trial and error, along with plenty of honest self-reflection and open dialogue along the way, to determine what application of sobriety you will need to practice in order to live a peaceful, free, and happy life. My own sobriety was just such a process. While I would consider marijuana to be my addict's ride-or-die drug of choice, I have a history of abusing pretty much every substance I could get my hands on, going all the way back to my teens. If it had the potential to change my mood or obliterate my consciousness, my addict would rise up like a great big greedy beast, demanding more and more of it. To hell with the consequences. My addict was a big part of my life from the start, and I followed its lead for almost 20 years. After that, my own sobriety unfolded after a 10-year period. I got sober from cocaine, ecstasy, and prescription stimulants more than a decade before I stopped using weed. In between, I got sober from alcohol and benzodiazepine meds. I now practice sobriety from them all. But at no time during that 10-year process could you have forced me, shamed me, or tried to talk me into quitting any one of those substances one single second before I actually did. I wasn't ready until I was ready, to use one of the truest truisms of recovery. My sobriety has been a process of gradual awareness and acceptance that I cannot enjoy a life of peace, freedom, and happiness if I use any of those substances. Believe me, I've tried to finagle them every which way, and I can't. That's just me, though, and I have to be careful not to apply the same I know what's best for you sobriety logic to everyone who comes to me for help with an addictive disorder. Because for some recovering people, the full-scale sobriety standard is either just not happening, or it doesn't seem to be a prerequisite for them to enjoy the freedoms of recovery. Regardless of the reason, I don't believe that anyone should be shamed or coerced into adhering to a standard of sobriety that they aren't ready for or that doesn't make sense to them. If complete sobriety from all substances is what you authentically need and want, that's terrific. If not, then it's critical to begin your recovery by exploring your willingness to get sober from the drug, parentheses S, you are clearly powerless over, the source of your out-of-control behavior, declining health, and emotional distress. I recognize that there are plenty of people in the world of recovery, which includes both recovering addicts and the professionals who treat them, who believe that an addict, and that any addict who wants to recover needs to abstain from every from every potentially addictive substance, lest he or she risk becoming addicted to whatever could fill the void left behind by their drug of choice. To them, sobriety means no more alcohol or potentially addictive drugs forever. One day at a time, of course. I once saw a documentary about marijuana addiction where one of the addicts interviewed said, "If you put me on the moon without any weed around, I'd be smoking moon rocks in no time." A good number of us addicts are simply wired that way. If there's an accessible emergency exit that allows us to escape ourselves, we'll head that way instinctively, no matter how well things are going otherwise. I have a problem, though, when the total sobriety people start condemning other recovering addicts who aren't doing the same. Because shaming and peer pressure are such effective motivators for positive change. Not. Besides, what I've observed is that even such an unequivocal approach to sobriety isn't a hard and fast solution guaranteeing peace, freedom, and happiness. Because what if a recovering alcoholic is successful at abstaining from all addictive drugs, but he obsessively pursues a series of intense short-term relationships, the inevitable failure of which sends him into frequent spirals of despair and self-loathing? Such a person wouldn't be able to reap the benefits of recovery as long as he's engaging in such self-destructive behavior. Unfortunately, I've seen many recovering addicts suffer when they turn a blind eye to the impact of their dubious extracurricular activities, whether that's compulsive sex, gambling, anger, cigarette smoking, binge eating, video gaming, or workaholism. It can be all too easy to fall into denial about the damage your addict continues to inflict, as long as you're busy patting yourself on the back from a lofty tower of chemical sobriety. Conversely, I've worked with recovering alcoholics who use cannabis edibles before bed without any symptoms of abusing them. I've worked with recovering sex addicts who have a glass of wine with dinner, but don't think twice about alcohol otherwise. I've worked with recovering drug addicts who can put bets on the Super Bowl or buy the occasional scratch-off ticket and not get sucked into a gambling addiction. Who am I to tell these people that they're doing recovery wrong if they're not experiencing any emotional or behavioral distress as a result of those behaviors? Not that it would matter, even if I did raise an eyebrow. Growth is best facilitated when we can recognize and accept the truth about ourselves, not when other people try to tell us who we are or what we need to do. That said, it's entirely possible that behaviors that have historically been non-problematic for you may become problematic. Hence, the trial and error aspect of many recovering addicts' sobriety. Please take heart, though, that falling into another form of addictive behavior doesn't have to spell disaster or be an ominous indication of your future in recovery. Instead, I would urge you to regard any slips back into powerlessness as critical information about what doesn't work for you anymore. The most important thing is your capacity to admit that there is a problem, followed by your willingness to address it. Both of those skills will come with time as you scale the learning curve of honesty and self-reflection that are so important to recovery. In the big picture, sobriety is about having our eyes wide open to the behaviors and circumstances that are harmful to us and becoming willing to let those go when we accept that truth. That is it for Chapter 8, Sobriety is a Process, from The Addict's Guide to Recovery, written by me, Emily Sussman, available at most online booksellers. Thank you so much for listening today. Please come back next time for more. See ya!